The chamber was silent. Not the peaceful kind of silence. Not the reverent hush before a blessing or the stillness of a forest at dawn. This was the silence of judgment, cold, hollow, and absolute. Marcus Chun stood at the center of the Galactic Council's King, a sprawling amphitheater carved from crystalline stone that pulsed faintly with bioluminescent veins. Above him, the dome stretched into infinity, displaying a swirling tapestry of stars and nebulae, a constant reminder of how vast the universe was, and how small he felt. Around him, seated in concentric rings that climbed toward the heavens, were the delegates of the Galactic Union. Hundreds of species, thousands of eyes, some compound, some spectral, some that saw in wavelengths Marcus couldn't even name, all fixed on him. He was Earth's envoy, and Earth had just been rejected. The speaker, a towering figure wreathed in silver light whose form seemed to shift between solid and vapor, raised one elongated arm. Its voice resonated not in sound, but in thought, a telepathic hum that settled into the minds of all present like cold rain. Humanity's petition for membership in the Galactic Union is hereby denied. The words landed like stones. Marcus felt his chest tighten. He'd known this was possible. Earth's leaders had warned him. But knowing and feeling were different things. Behind him, the small delegation of human diplomats shifted nervously. Dr. Anaya Okoye, Earth's leading xenobiologist, clenched her jaw. General Kozlov's face was unreadable, a mask of military discipline. And Ambassador Liu, Earth's most eloquent speaker, looked as though someone had stolen the words right out of his mouth. The speaker continued, its tone devoid of malice, but also devoid of warmth. Your species has demonstrated insufficient technological advancement, cultural maturity, and ethical cohesion. You wage wars upon yourselves. You exploit your planet's resources without foresight. You have not yet learned the fundamental principle of galactic coexistence, unity of purpose. Until such time as you do, Earth will remain in quarantine. This council is adjourned. And just like that, it was over. The delegates began to rise, their forms shimmering as they prepared to phase out, teleport, or simply walk away. Some glanced at the humans with pity, others with disdain. Most didn't look at all. Marcus wanted to scream. He wanted to argue, to plead, to demand a second chance. But the words caught in his throat, tangled with shame and frustration and a creeping sense of failure. We came so far. We built the first faster-than-light drive. We decoded their language. We reached out in peace. And it wasn't enough. As the chamber emptied, Marcus stood frozen, staring at the floor. The bioluminescent veins beneath his feet pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat. The universe's heartbeat. And Earth, his home, his people, had just been told they didn't belong to it. Dr. Okoye placed a hand on his shoulder. We'll try again, she said quietly. In 10 years, 20, we'll prove them wrong. Marcus nodded, though he didn't believe it. Not really. He turned to leave, but then he saw her. She was small. That was the first thing Marcus noticed. In a chamber full of beings who towered, glowed, or phased between dimensions, she was small, barely 4 feet tall, with a frame so slight she looked like she might blow away in a strong wind. Her skin was a soft, mottled blue, like the surface of a distant moon. Her eyes, large, dark, and liquid, watched him with an intensity that made his breath catch. She had no hair, but delicate, feather-like tendrils framed her face, moving gently as though stirred by an invisible breeze. She was young. He could tell, even across the gap of species and culture. There was something in the way she stood, hesitant, curious, afraid. And she was staring at him, not with judgment, not with pity, with wonder. Marcus didn't know what made him do it. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe he just needed to connect with someone in this vast, indifferent cosmos. He smiled. It was a small smile, fragile and uncertain, but it was real. The girl's eyes widened. Her tendrils fluttered. And then, slowly, carefully, she smiled back. It was the first kind thing that had happened to him in hours. Dr. Okoye tugged his arm. Marcus, we need to go. He nodded, but as he turned to leave, he glanced back one more time. The girl was still watching him. And in her hands, she clutched something. A small, smooth stone, glowing faintly with warmth. She held it out toward him. Marcus didn't understand. But he felt, in some deep and inexplicable way, that it mattered. He took a step toward her, but a tall figure materialized beside her, cloaked in dark robes. The girl flinched and tucked the stone away, her expression shifting from open curiosity to quiet fear. The robed figure placed a hand on her shoulder and guided her toward the exit. She looked back once, her dark eyes meeting Marcus's. And then she was gone. Marcus stood there for a long moment, his heart heavy with something he couldn't name. Who was she? And why did she look at me like that? He didn't have answers. But as he finally turned and walked out of the chamber, back toward the human delegation and the long, lonely journey home, he felt something shift inside him. The council had said no. But that little girl had said something else entirely. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of silence. 3 weeks of failure hanging in the air like smoke. The human delegation barely spoke. Dr. Okoye buried herself in data reports. General Kozlov drilled the security team. Ambassador Liu stared out the viewport, watching the stars drift by with hollow eyes. And Marcus? Marcus cooked. It was the only thing that made sense anymore. The ship's galley was small utilitarian, designed for pre-packaged rations and nutrient paste. But Marcus had insisted on bringing real ingredients: flour, salt, olive oil, garlic, honey, spices from 6 continents. The diplomats had thought it was wasteful. The engineers had complained about the weight. But Marcus had been firm. If we're going to meet the galaxy, he'd said, we should bring the best of what we are. Now, in the quiet hum of the ship's engines, he kneaded dough with slow, deliberate motions. His hands moved on instinct, muscle memory built over decades in kitchens across Earth, New York, Bangkok, Lagos, Buenos Aires. Everywhere he'd ever cooked, he'd learned the same truth. Food is a language that everyone speaks. He shaped the dough into small rounds and set them to rise. The scent of yeast filled the galley, warm and familiar. It reminded him of his grandfather's kitchen in Chengdu, where he'd learned to make mantu and watch the dough breathe and grow. You still at it? Marcus looked up. Dr. Okoye stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching him with tired eyes. Can't sleep, Marcus said. Thought I'd make something. For who? He shrugged. For me. For you. For anyone who's hungry. She stepped inside, her boots quiet on the metal floor. We failed, Marcus. I know. We came all this way. Humanity's first contact with the Galactic Union. And we were rejected like we were nothing. Marcus didn't answer. He slid the dough into the small oven and set the timer. Dr. Okoye exhaled slowly. I keep thinking, what if we'd said something different? What if we'd brought better tech, better arguments, better? They didn't reject our tech, Marcus said quietly. They rejected us. The words hung in the air. The timer chimed. Marcus pulled the bread from the oven, golden, fragrant, perfect. He tore off a piece and handed it to her. She took it, hesitant, then bit down. Her eyes closed. For a moment, the tension in her shoulders eased. It's good, she murmured. It's just bread. No, she said. It's more than that. Marcus smiled faintly. That's what my grandfather used to say. He said every meal is a gift. Every dish is a story. If you cook with care, people can taste it. Dr. Okoye finished the bread in silence, then looked at him. Do you think they have that? Out there? In the galaxy? Have what? This. She gestured at the bread. Something simple. Something made with care. Marcus thought of the council chamber, the cold, crystalline walls, the distant delegates, the silence. I don't know, he said. But I hope so. What Marcus didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that, 3 weeks earlier and several light years away, the small blue girl had returned home. Her name was Lyra. She was a Kalian, a species known across the galaxy for their quiet nature, their poetry, their long memory. But Lyra was young, only 16 cycles old, and she had never been to the council before. Her guardian, Overseer Tanith, had brought her as part of her civic education. You must see how the galaxy governs itself, Tanith had said. You must understand the weight of leadership. But what Lyra had seen was not leadership. It was cruelty. She sat now in her small quarters aboard the Kalian diplomatic vessel, staring at the glowing stone she tried to give the human. It was a karu, a traditional Kalian gift, meant to symbolize warmth and welcome. She had wanted to give it to him so badly. But Tanith had stopped her. They are beneath us, child. Do not waste your compassion on primitives. Lyra had said nothing, but her heart had ached. She thought about the human, Marcus, she'd later learned his name was, standing alone in that vast chamber, surrounded by beings who looked at him like he was nothing. She thought about the way he'd smiled at her. Small, fragile, real. And she made a decision. That night, while the ship drifted through subspace and Overseer Tanith meditated in her chambers, Lyra accessed the galactic network. It was forbidden for someone her age to use the network unsupervised. But Lyra was clever, and she had learned to move quietly through the galaxy's digital corridors. She searched for one name, Marcus Chun, Earth. What she found surprised her. He wasn't a politician. He wasn't a scientist or a soldier. He was a chef. The records were sparse. Earth's data presence in the galactic archives was minimal, but she pieced together fragments. Marcus Chun, born in Chengdu, China, studied culinary arts in Paris, worked in kitchens across the world, chosen as part of Earth's delegation not for his diplomacy, but because someone believed that breaking bread together was the first step toward understanding. Lyra's tendrils fluttered softly. A cook, she thought. They sent a cook to meet the galaxy. It was the most hopeful thing she'd ever heard. She kept digging. And what she found, buried deep in the human data files, were images, videos, recipes, stories. Humans gathering around tables. Humans laughing, crying, sharing food. Humans teaching their children to knead dough, to stir pots, to taste and adjust and create. Lyra watched, transfixed, as a video played. Marcus in a small kitchen, hands dusted with flour, shaping dumplings with a group of children. His voice was warm, patient. You fold it like this, see? You're not just making food. You're making a memory. The children laughed. One of them hugged him. Lyra's chest tightened. This is what the council rejected, she thought. This warmth. This love. And she realized something that would change everything. They were wrong. Marcus was back in his apartment in Brooklyn, staring at a pot of soup. It was a good soup, rich, savory, full of ginger and garlic and slow-simmered pork bones. The kind of soup his grandmother used to make when he was sick, when the world felt too big and too cold. But it didn't help. Nothing helped. The rejection had been made public. Earth's news networks had covered it obsessively for weeks. Humanity not ready for the stars, the headlines read. Galactic Council denies Earth's bid. Some called it a tragedy. Others called it an embarrassment. Marcus had stopped reading the news. He'd also stopped cooking professionally. After the delegation disbanded, he'd quietly returned to his old life, or tried to. But every time he stood in the kitchen, every time he picked up a knife or stirred a pot, he felt the weight of that silent chamber pressing down on him. Insufficient. Primitive. Not ready. Dr. Okoye called him every week. Don't give up, she'd say. We'll try again. But Marcus didn't want to try again. He wanted to understand. Why did they reject us? And why did that little girl look at me like I mattered? It arrived on a Tuesday. Marcus was washing dishes when his comm unit chimed, not with the usual ping of a text or call, but with a deep resonant hum that made the air vibrate. He dried his hands and picked up the device. The screen displayed a message in glowing script, text that shifted and shimmered, translating itself in real time. Marcus Chun, this is Lyra of Kelios. I was at the council. I saw you. I need your help. His heart stopped. He read it again. Then, again. Lyra of Kelios. The girl. His hands trembled as he typed a response. Who are you? How did you find me? The reply came instantly. I accessed the galactic network. I learned about you. About Earth. About your food. Marcus blinked. My food? You cook, she continued. You make meals that bring people together. I have seen the images. the videos, the way humans share food and stories. It is beautiful. He didn't know what to say. The council was wrong, Lyra wrote. They do not see what I see. But I am young and I have no voice. I need you to teach me. Teach you what? Marcus typed. Teach me to make the food that brings people together. Teach me your language of care. And maybe together we can show the galaxy what they missed. Marcus sat down slowly, his mind racing. This was insane. A random alien girl he'd seen once, for 30 seconds, was messaging him across light years, asking him to what? Cook for her? Teach me your language of care. He thought about the council chamber, the cold silence, the rejection, and he thought about the way Lyra had looked at him, like he was something worth seeing. He typed, "Why me?" The response came quickly. "Because you smiled at me. Because you tried to connect. Because you are not a politician or a warrior. You are someone who feeds people. That is the rarest thing in the galaxy." Marcus felt something crack open in his chest, something that had been locked tight since the day of the rejection. Hope. He typed, "What do you want me to do?" "Come back," Lyra wrote. "Come to the Kalian system. I will arrange safe passage. I will meet you in secret. And you will teach me everything you know. And then we will go back to the council. And we will make them listen." Marcus stared at the screen for a long time. It was a foolish plan. Dangerous. Impossible. But then again, so was crossing the ocean, landing on the moon, reaching for the stars. We are not a species that plays it safe, he thought. We are a species that hopes. He typed one word. Okay. 2 weeks. Later, Marcus stood in the cargo bay of a small, unmarked transport vessel. Dr. Okoye had argued with him for hours. "This is reckless, Marcus. You don't know this girl. You don't know what you're walking into." "I know," he'd said. "But she's the only one who believed in us." Ambassador Liu had been more pragmatic. "If you're going, take this." He'd handed Marcus a data chip. Earth's cultural archives. Music, art, history, recipes. "If you're going to represent us, do it right." General Kozlov had simply shaken his hand. "Don't get killed." Now, as the ship hummed to life and the stars began to streak past the viewport, Marcus felt a strange calm settle over him. He didn't know what waited for him in the Kalian system. He didn't know if Lyra's plan would work, or if he'd even survive the attempt. But he knew one thing. This is what I was meant to do. Not politics. Not diplomacy. Connection. The ship's AI chimed softly. Approaching Kilios. Estimated arrival, 6 hours. Marcus moved to the small galley he'd insisted on outfitting. He unpacked his knives, his spices, his carefully preserved ingredients. And he began to cook. Because that's what he did. That's who he was. And maybe, just maybe, it would be enough. On Kilios, in a hidden garden beneath a canopy of silver trees, Lyra waited. She had told no one of her plan, not Overseer Tanith, not her family, not the council. If they knew, they would stop her. But she had to try. She thought of the humans, their laughter, their warmth, their foolish, reckless hope. They are not primitive, she thought. They are brave. And she would prove it, even if it cost her everything. The transport dropped Marcus at the edge of the Whispering Gardens, a place Lyra had chosen for its secrecy and its beauty. As he stepped off the ramp, Marcus's breath caught. Kilios was unlike anything he'd ever seen. The sky was a soft lavender, streaked with ribbons of silver clouds that moved like living things. The air smelled of rain and something sweet, like jasmine mixed with honey. And the garden itself was a cathedral of light. Trees with translucent bark glowed softly, their leaves chiming in the breeze, like wind chimes made of glass. It was peaceful. Too peaceful, Marcus thought. He felt like an intruder. Papa Human. He turned. Lyra stood beneath one of the glowing trees, small and still, her dark eyes watching him carefully. She was exactly as he remembered, fragile, curious, afraid. But there was something new in her expression now. Determination. "You came," she said softly. Her voice was melodic, layered with harmonics, that made it sound like she was singing even when she spoke. "You asked me to," Marcus said. He set down his bag, heavy with kitchen tools, ingredients, and the data chip ambassador Lou had given him. And I don't think anyone's ever asked me to do something this important before. Lyra's tendrils fluttered, a sign of emotion, Marcus guessed. Relief? Gratitude? I did not think you would, she admitted. Humans are not known for trusting strangers. Marcus smiled. Neither are Kalians, I guess. She tilted her head. You know of my people? I read everything I could find, Marcus said. You're poets, archivists. You remember things the galaxy forgets. Lyra looked surprised. Then she smiled, just a small curve of her thin lips, but it was real. Yes, she said. We remember. And that is why I asked you here. Lyra led Marcus deeper into the garden, to a small pavilion carved from the same glowing stone as the council chamber. Inside was a simple kitchen, modest by human standards, but functional. I built this, Lyra said almost shyly. I have been studying human cooking, the techniques, the tools, but I do not understand the purpose. Marcus set his bag down and looked around. There was a small stove, a counter, a basin for water. Basic, but workable. The purpose, he asked. Yes. Lyra stepped forward, her tendrils trembling slightly. In the Galactic Archives, I found thousands of human recipes. Millions of images. But I do not understand why. Why do humans spend so much time preparing food? You have nutrient synthesizers. You could sustain yourselves efficiently. Why do you cook? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. Let me show you, he said. He unpacked his ingredients: flour, water, salt, olive oil. Simple things. Humble things. We're going to make bread, he said. Lyra watched, fascinated, as Marcus measured the flour, added the water, began to knead. Bread is one of the oldest foods humans make, Marcus explained as he worked. It's been part of our culture for thousands of years. Every civilization has its own version. In Italy, it's focaccia. In India, it's naan. In Ethiopia, injera. In China, mantu. His hands moved in steady, practiced rhythms, folding, pressing, turning. But no matter where you go, Marcus continued, the process is the same. You take something simple, flour, water, salt, and you transform it. You give it time. You give it care. And when it's done, you share it. He paused, looking at Lyra. That's why we cook. Not because we have to. Because it connects us. Lyra stared at the dough, mesmerized. May I try? She asked. Of course. She stepped forward hesitantly, placing her small, three-fingered hands on the dough. Marcus guided her gently, showing her how to fold and press. At first, she was clumsy. The dough stuck to her fingers. She pressed too hard, then too soft. But slowly, she found a rhythm. And as she worked, something shifted in her expression. The fear melted away. The hesitation faded. She was learning. This is strange, Lyra said softly. On Kilios, we do not prepare food this way. We consume nutrients. We do not gather. We do not share. Why not? Marcus asked. It is not efficient, Lyra said. It is not logical. Marcus smiled. No, it's not. But it's human. Lyra looked up at him, her dark eyes wide. I think it is beautiful. They worked in silence for a while, shaping the dough into small rounds. Then Marcus placed them in the oven and set them to bake. As they waited, the scent began to fill the pavilion, warm, yeasty, golden. Lyra closed her eyes and breathed deeply. What is that feeling? She asked. That scent, it makes me feel safe. That's what food does, Marcus said gently. It makes us feel at home. When the bread was done, Marcus tore off a piece and handed it to her. Lyra hesitated, then took a small bite. Her eyes widened. It is warm, she whispered. Not just in temperature. It is warm in a way I cannot describe. That's the purpose, Marcus said. That's why we cook. Lyra looked at him, and for the first time, he saw tears in her eyes, clear, shimmering droplets that caught the light like stars. The council should have tasted this, she said. If they had, they would not have rejected you. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Maybe. No, Lyra said, her voice suddenly firm. Not maybe. I know it. and I will make them see." That night, under the silver sky, Lyra explained her plan. "In 3 months, the Galactic Council will convene again," she said. "It is the Festival of Unity, a gathering where all species share their culture, their achievements, their contributions to the galaxy." "And you want me to cook for them?" Marcus guessed. "Yes," Lyra said. "But more than that, I want you to teach them. Show them what it means to share a meal, to build something together, to connect." Marcus exhaled slowly. "Lyra, they rejected us. They won't even let us." In the door. "Then we will not ask permission," Lyra said, her voice steady. "I am a Kalian. I have the right to present. And I will present you." Marcus stared at her. "You'd risk your standing in the council for this?" "Yes," Lyra said simply. "Because it is right." And in that moment, Marcus understood. This wasn't about politics. It wasn't about trade deals or alliances. It was about a young girl who believed that kindness mattered more than power. And maybe, just maybe, she was right. The days blurred together. Marcus stayed on Kelios, hidden in the Whispering Gardens, teaching Lyra everything he knew. And Lyra, brilliant, determined, tireless, absorbed it all like sunlight. They made dumplings, folding the dough with care, filling them with vegetables and spices. They made soups, simmering broths for hours until the flavors deepened and bloomed. They made pastries delicate and flaky, dusted with sugar that sparkled like snow. But it wasn't just about the food. It was about the ritual. "Why do you always taste as you cook?" Lyra asked one day, watching Marcus adjust the seasoning in a pot of stew. "Because cooking is a conversation," Marcus said. "You add salt, you taste. You add pepper, you taste. The food tells you what it needs. The food speaks." Lyra asked, confused. Marcus smiled. "In a way, you learn to listen." Lyra frowned, then hesitantly dipped a spoon into the stew and tasted. Her tendrils fluttered. "It needs more warmth," she said slowly. "Not heat. Something deeper." "Exactly," Marcus said. "That's cumin. Or maybe a little honey to balance the acid." They added both. "Tasted again." Lyra's eyes widened. "It is whole now." "Yes," Marcus said. "That's what we're looking for. Wholeness." As the weeks passed, Marcus began to notice something remarkable. Lyra wasn't just learning to cook. She was learning to feel. Kalians, Marcus had learned, were a reserved people. They valued logic, memory, tradition. Emotion was considered private, something to be managed quietly, internally. But as Lyra cooked, as she kneaded dough and stirred pots and tasted and adjusted, something in her began to open. She laughed when the bread rose perfectly. She cried when a dish reminded her of a half-forgotten memory. She connected to the food, to the process, to Marcus. "I did not know I could feel this much," she admitted one evening, as they sat together eating a simple meal of rice and vegetables. "Cooking does that," Marcus said. "It breaks down walls." "Is that why you do it?" Lyra asked. "To feel." Marcus thought about it. "I think I do it to remind myself that I'm part of something bigger. Every time I cook, I'm connected to everyone who taught me. My grandfather, my mentors, the people I've fed. It's like I'm never really alone." Lyra looked at him with those deep, dark eyes. "You are not alone, Papa Human." Marcus's chest tightened. "You keep calling me that." "Why?" Lyra's tendrils fluttered shyly. "Because you teach me. You care for me. You are like the fathers in the human stories I read." "So, Papa Human." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. He reached out and gently placed a hand on her small shoulder. "Then you're my student," he said. "My Lyra." She smiled, a real, unguarded smile that lit up her whole face. And in that moment, Marcus realized something profound. This is why we were rejected. Not because we're primitive, but because we're dangerous. We make people feel. Not everyone was happy with Lyra's plan. Overseer Tanith discovered what Lyra was doing 2 weeks before the Festival of Unity. She arrived at the pavilion unannounced, her dark robes swirling like smoke, her expression cold. "Lyra," she said, her voice sharp. "What is this?" Lyra stood her ground, though Marcus could see the fear in her eyes. "I am preparing a presentation for the festival." With him, Tanith's gaze swept over Marcus with disdain. "A human, a rejected species. You bring shame upon our people." "No," Lyra said, her voice trembling but firm. "I bring hope." Tanith's eyes narrowed. "You are a child. You do not understand the consequences of your actions." "I understand that the council was wrong," Lyra said. "I understand that humanity was rejected not because they lack worth, but because we lack the vision to see it." Tanith stepped closer, her presence towering over Lyra's small frame. "The council's decision was final. You will not overturn it with sentiment." "I will overturn it with truth," Lyra said. "And with bread." Tanith stared at her, uncomprehending. Lyra gestured to the table, where loaves of golden bread sat cooling. "Taste it, overseer. Please." "I will not." "Taste it," Lyra insisted, her voice breaking. "If you taste it and still believe the council was right, I will abandon my plan. But if you taste it and feel even a fraction of what I feel, you will understand." For a long moment, Tanith said nothing. Then, slowly, she reached out and tore off a piece of bread. She bit down. Her expression shifted, just slightly. A flicker of something unguarded. "It is warm," she said quietly. "Yes," Lyra said. "That is what humans do. They create warmth. They share it. And the galaxy rejected them for it." Tanith set the bread down, her face unreadable. "You will fail, child. The council will not be swayed by food." "Perhaps," Lyra said. "But I have to try." Tanith looked at Marcus for the first time. "You have taught her this?" "No," Marcus said. "She taught herself. I just showed her how." Tanith was silent for a long time. Then she turned and walked away. But as she left, she took the rest of the bread with her. The night before the Festival of Unity, Marcus couldn't sleep. He stood in the pavilion, staring at the ingredients laid out before him: flour, salt, oil, spices, honey, vegetables, grains. Simple things. Humble things. Can this really change anything? He wondered. Can a meal really make the galaxy see us differently? He thought about Earth, his home, his people. Flawed, yes. Divided, yes. But also capable of extraordinary kindness, creativity, and love. He thought about Lyra, risking everything to stand up for a species she'd never even met. And he thought about the little blue girl in the council chamber, holding out a glowing stone. She believed in us before she even knew us. Maybe that's the point. Lyra appeared in the doorway, wrapped in a soft cloak. "You should rest, Papa Human," she said gently. "I can't," Marcus admitted. "I keep thinking, what if it's not enough?" Lyra walked over and stood beside him. "It will be enough, because it is real." Marcus looked down at her. "How are you so sure?" "Because I was lost," Lyra said. "And you fed me. And now I am found." Marcus felt tears slip down his cheeks. "Thank you, Lyra," he whispered. "No," she said. "Thank you, Papa Human." And together, in the soft glow of the Whispering Gardens, they prepared for the most important meal of their lives. The Galactic Council's chamber had been transformed. Where once there had been cold stone and sterile light, now there were banners and sculptures, music and color. Delegates from across the galaxy had gathered, each bringing artifacts of their culture: crystalline art from the Selenites, harmonic instruments from the Voru, living tapestries from the Mycelians. It was a celebration of diversity. But Marcus still felt like an outsider. He and Lyra stood in a small preparation area behind the main hall, surrounded by crates of ingredients and cooking equipment Marcus had brought from Earth. Lyra wore formal Kalian robes, deep blue, embroidered with silver thread that shimmered like starlight. Her tendrils were adorned with tiny chimes that sang softly when she moved. She looked beautiful and terrified. "They will not listen," she whispered, staring at the closed doors that led to the chamber. Overseer Tanith was right. The council does not care about food. They care about power, technology, order. "Maybe," Marcus said. "But they're still people. Or beings. Whatever. They still have hearts. Or heart equivalents." Lyra looked at him, her dark eyes filled with doubt. Marcus knelt down, so they were at eye level. Lyra, you've already done the hardest part. You believed in something when no one else did. You took a risk. You cared. That's more than most people ever do. But what if I fail you? She asked, her voice breaking. You won't, Marcus said. Because this isn't about me. It's about showing them something true. And truth doesn't fail. The doors opened. A Kalian attendant stepped through. Lyra of Kelios. You are summoned. Lyra took a deep breath. Then she looked at Marcus and nodded. Let us show them, Papa Human. Let's show them. The chamber was packed. Hundreds of delegates filled the concentric rings, their attention focused on the center stage where presenters had been sharing their cultural contributions. Marcus and Lyra's station had been set up in the middle, a simple wooden table, a portable stove, and the ingredients Marcus had carefully prepared. It looked absurdly small compared to the grandeur around them. The speaker's voice resonated through the chamber. Next, we recognize Lyra of Kelios, who will present on behalf of humanity. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Confusion. Surprise. Some delegates leaned forward with curiosity. Others turned away with disdain. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Here we go. Lyra stepped forward, her small frame dwarfed by the vastness of the chamber. But her voice, when she spoke, was clear and strong. Honored delegates, she began. I stand before you today not as a politician or a scientist. I stand as a student. 3 months ago, I witnessed this council reject humanity. I watched as we dismissed them as primitive, as unworthy. She paused, letting the words settle. But I was curious. So I reached out. And I learned something the council did not see. She gestured to Marcus, who stepped forward. This is Marcus Chun. He is a chef, a cook, a human who spends his life creating meals for others. And he taught me something that I believe the galaxy has forgotten. Lyra moved to the table and picked up a bowl of flour. This is flour, she said. A simple thing. Ground grain. Humble. Unremarkable. She added water, salt, a drizzle of oil. But when you give it care, when you need it, shape it, give it time, it transforms. Her hands moved slowly, deliberately, as Marcus had taught her. The delegates watched, some confused, some intrigued. Humans call this bread, Lyra continued. And they have been making it for thousands of years. Every culture has a version. Every family has a recipe. It is not efficient. It is not logical. But it is sacred. She shaped the dough into small rounds and placed them on the heated stone Marcus had prepared. The scent began to rise, warm, rich, unmistakable. Bread is not just food, Lyra said. It is a ritual. It is how humans connect. It is how they say, you are welcome here. You are safe. You are loved. The chamber was silent now. Even the delegates who had turned away were watching. Lyra pulled the bread from the heat, golden, perfect, and tore off a piece. I ask you, she said, her voice trembling with emotion, to taste this, and to remember something we have lost. She held the bread out toward the nearest delegate, a tall, crystalline being from the Selenite Consortium. The Selenite hesitated. Then, slowly, it reached out and took the bread. It consumed the bread in a way Marcus didn't quite understand, absorbing it, perhaps, through its translucent form. And then it glowed. A soft, warm light spread through its body, pulsing gently. I remember, the Selenite said, its voice like wind chimes. I remember warmth. One by one, other delegates approached. Lyra and Marcus tore off pieces of bread and handed them out to the Voru, to the Mycelians, to species Marcus couldn't even name. And, as they ate, something extraordinary happened. They softened. The chamber, which had been cold and distant, began to fill with quiet murmurs, with hesitant smiles, with something Marcus could only describe as recognition. An elder delegate, a Kalian, ancient and frail, approached Lyra with tears streaming down their face. I remember, the elder whispered. Before we became efficient, before we forgot, we used to gather, we used to share. Lyra took the elder's hand. Then let us remember again. The speaker, who had remained silent throughout, finally spoke. This is unprecedented. Its form shimmered, almost uncertain. Lyra of Kelios, you present not technology, not policy, but food. Yes, Lyra said, because food is not just sustenance. It is connection. And humanity understands this in a way we have forgotten. The speaker was quiet for a long moment. And what do you ask of this council? I ask you to reconsider, Lyra said. I ask you to see humanity not as primitive, but as human. Flawed, yes. Divided, yes. But also capable of extraordinary kindness. And I ask you to let them teach us what we have lost. The chamber erupted into debate. Some delegates argued passionately in favor. Others remained skeptical. But Marcus noticed something. No one was dismissing them anymore. They were listening. The council chamber buzzed with voices, melodic, resonant, discordant, layered. Delegates argued in a dozen languages, their forms shifting with emotion. Marcus stood beside Lyra, his heart pounding, as the galaxy decided their fate. A delegate from the Voru collective stepped forward, a being of pure sound, its form rippling like a living orchestra. I speak in favor, it sang. I tasted the human's bread, and I felt something I have not felt in centuries, joy. Not the satisfaction of achievement, not the pride of conquest. Simple, uncomplicated joy. If humanity can give that to the galaxy, we are fools to reject them. Applause, or its equivalent, echoed through the chamber. But another delegate rose, a towering, insectoid creature from the Hive Dominion, its voice sharp and clicking. Sentiment is not governance, it hissed. Bread does not build starships. Kindness does not defend borders. Humanity remains technologically inferior. They remain divided. One meal does not change that. Murmurs of agreement. Marcus felt his chest tighten. They're right, he thought. We are divided. We are flawed. What if this isn't enough? But then Lyra stepped forward again. You are correct, she said, her voice cutting through the noise. Humanity is not perfect. They are not the most advanced species. They are not the most unified. She paused, her dark eyes sweeping the chamber. But they are the most human. Silence. They feel deeply. They struggle openly. They fail, and they try again. And in their imperfection, they create something the rest of us have lost, hope. Lyra's voice grew stronger, more passionate. I have studied the archives. I have seen what the galaxy has become. We are efficient. We are logical. We are ordered. But we are also empty. We have forgotten how to gather, how to share, how to care for one another without calculation or purpose. She gestured to Marcus. This human came to the council 3 months ago and was rejected. And do you know what he did? He did not rage. He did not despair. He cooked. Because that is what humans do. They create warmth, even in the coldest places. The elder Kalian, who had wept earlier, rose to their feet. The child speaks truth, the elder said, their voice trembling with age and emotion. I am old. I have lived through the rise of the Galactic Union. I remember when we were not so distant, when our species gathered not for policy, but for communion. We have lost that. And if humanity can remind us, perhaps we are the ones who are primitive. A ripple of shock passed through the chamber. The Selenite delegate glowed brightly. I, too, support reconsideration. The human's bread awakened memories I thought long dissolved. That alone is worth acknowledgement. More voices joined in. Not all, some remained opposed. But enough. Enough. The speaker raised one shimmering arm, and silence fell. This council has heard testimony. We have tasted the human's offering. We have witnessed the passion of Lyra of Kelios. Its gaze, or the sense of its attention, fixed on Marcus. Marcus Chun of Earth. You were rejected once. Do you wish to petition again for humanity's membership? Marcus felt every eye in the chamber turn toward him. His mouth was dry. His hands trembled. Say something. Say anything. He thought of Earth, of his grandfather's kitchen, of every meal he'd ever cooked, every person he'd ever fed. He thought of Lyra, standing beside him, small and brave and unshakable. And he spoke. "Yes," Marcus said. "But not because we're perfect. Not because we have all the answers. We don't." He looked around the chamber, meeting the gaze of delegate after delegate. "We're broken. We fight. We make mistakes. But we care. We care so much that it hurts. And we've learned that the only way to heal is to share that care. To cook a meal. To break bread. To sit together and say you matter." His voice cracked. "I don't know if that's enough for the galaxy. But it's what we have. And if you give us a chance, we'll share it with all of you." Silence. Then, slowly, the Vorid delegate began to hum, a low, resonant note that grew and spread, joined by other voices, other sounds. It was not applause. It was agreement. The speaker's voice resonated one final time. "The Council will now vote. All in favor of reconsidering humanity's petition, signify now." Lights began to appear throughout the chamber, soft glows, pulses, harmonics. Each delegate casting their vote. Marcus held his breath. Lyra's small hand slipped into his, trembling. "Whatever happens," she whispered, "you did something beautiful, Papa Human." "We did," Marcus corrected. The lights continued to appear, one after another, spreading through the chamber like stars coming to life. And then, finally, the speaker spoke. "The vote is decided. By majority consensus, humanity's petition is reconsidered." A pause. "Furthermore, Earth is granted provisional membership in the Galactic Union, contingent upon continued cultural exchange and mutual cooperation." The chamber erupted. Some delegates cheered. Some protested. But the decision was made. Earth was in. Marcus felt his knees buckle. Lyra caught him, her small frame surprisingly strong. "We did it," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "We did it, Papa Human." Marcus pulled her into a hug, his own tears falling freely. "No," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You did it, Lyra. You believed when no one else did." "We believe together," Lyra said. "That is the human way, yes." Marcus laughed through his tears. "Yes, that's the human way." As the chamber slowly emptied, delegates approached Marcus and Lyra, some to offer congratulations, some to ask questions, some simply to shake Marcus's hand or touch Lyra's shoulder. The elder Kalian pressed a glowing stone into Lyra's palm, the same kind she had once tried to give Marcus. "You have honored us, child," the elder said. "You have reminded us what it means to be Kalian." Lyra bowed deeply, her chimes singing softly. Overseer Tanith appeared, her expression unreadable. For a long moment, she simply looked at Lyra. Then she knelt, slowly, stiffly, and placed a hand on Lyra's head. "You were right," Tanith said quietly. "And I was wrong. Forgive me, child." Lyra's tendrils trembled. "There is nothing to forgive, Overseer. You taught me to think. I simply learned to feel." Tanith's lips twitched, almost a smile. Then she rose and walked away, her dark robes trailing behind her. Marcus and Lyra stood alone in the center of the chamber, surrounded by the remnants of their presentation. Empty plates, crumbs of bread, the lingering scent of warmth. "What happens now?" Lyra asked. Marcus smiled. "Now, we cook, we teach, we share, and we build something new." Lyra looked up at him, her eyes shining. Together, Marcus said. And in the heart of the galaxy, under the light of 1,000,000,000 stars, a human and a Kalian began to dream of a future built not on power or technology, but on kindness. The Commonwealth Kitchens had become a legend. Located in the heart of the Galactic Union Central Station, it was a place unlike any other. A sprawling complex of cooking spaces, dining halls, and gardens where beings from across the galaxy gathered to learn, to cook, and to share meals. It was Marcus's idea, Lyra's vision, and the Council's gift. Marcus stood in the main kitchen, surrounded by a dozen students, species he'd never heard of a year ago, now carefully chopping vegetables, stirring pots, kneading dough under his watchful eye. "Remember," he called out, moving between stations, "cooking is about intention. You're not just feeding bodies. You're nourishing souls." A young mycelian, A fungal being with delicate, branching limbs looked up nervously. Chef Marcus, I think I burned the sauce. Marcus tasted it, considered, then smiled. It's caramelized. That's different. Add a little acid, lemon vinegar, and it'll balance out. The mycelium spores brightened with relief. In the corner, Lyra worked with a group of younger students, teaching them to make dumplings. Her movements were confident now, practiced. She'd become a teacher in her own right. Fold it like this, she demonstrated, her small hands deft and sure. You are not just shaping dough. You are shaping connection. The students, Kalian, Voru, Selenite, even a few humans, watched with rapt attention. After the lesson, Marcus and Lyra walked through the gardens, a space filled with plants from 100 worlds, all growing together in vibrant, chaotic harmony. Do you ever think about that day? Lyra asked. In the council chamber? Every day, Marcus said. It still feels like a dream. It was real, Lyra said. We made it real. They stopped beside a small fountain, its water shimmering with bioluminescent algae. You know, Marcus said, when I first came to the council, I thought I'd failed. I thought humanity had been rejected because we weren't good enough. And now? Lyra asked. Now I think we were rejected because they weren't ready to see us. But you were. Lyra's tendrils fluttered softly. I saw something in you, Papa Human. Something I needed. What was that? Hope, Lyra said simply. You gave me hope that the galaxy could be better. That I could be better. Marcus felt his throat tighten. You were already better, Lyra. You just needed someone to see it. That evening, the Commonwealth Kitchens hosted a special dinner, a gathering of delegates to finalize Earth's first formal trade agreement with the Galactic Union. It wasn't about rare minerals or advanced technology. It was about food. Earth would provide agricultural knowledge, culinary expertise, and cultural exchange. In return, the galaxy would share resources, technology, and guidance. It was a partnership built not on exploitation, but on mutual growth. The dining hall was filled with delegates from across the galaxy, seated at long tables laden with dishes from Earth and beyond. Pasta from Italy, curry from India, tagine from Morocco, sushi from Japan, injera from Ethiopia, and dozens of others. And in the center of every table, fresh-baked bread. The speaker rose to address the assembly, its form shimmering with light. 1 year ago, we rejected humanity. We called them primitive, unworthy. Today, we gather to celebrate the greatest trade deal this council has ever ratified, not because it is the most lucrative, but because it is the most human. The delegates murmured in agreement. Marcus Chun and Lyra of Kilios have taught us something we had forgotten, that civilization is not measured by technology or power, but by our capacity to care for one another. And for that, we are grateful. Applause filled the hall, voices, harmonics, pulses of light. Marcus stood and raised a glass of water. Thank you, he said simply, for giving us a chance, for letting us share what we love, and for reminding us that no matter how different we are, we all hunger for the same thing, connection. He looked at Lyra, who sat beside him, her eyes shining. To my student, he said, who taught me more than I ever taught her. Lyra stood as well, her small frame radiating quiet strength. To Papa Human, she said, who showed me that kindness is not weakness, it is the greatest courage. They clinked their glasses together, and the hall erupted in cheers. Later that night, after the delegates had departed and the kitchens had been cleaned, Marcus and Lyra sat together on the station's observation deck, watching the stars. What do you think comes next? Lyra asked. Marcus smiled. More cooking, more teaching, more sharing. That is all. Lyra asked, a hint of mischief in her voice. That's everything, Marcus said. We've spent so long reaching for the stars, trying to prove we're worthy. But maybe the real work is simpler. Maybe it's just being present, being kind, making sure no one goes hungry, not just for food, but for connection. Lyra rested her head against his shoulder. I like that. It is a good mission. Yeah, Marcus said. It is. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the galaxy turn. Somewhere out there, Earth was spinning, blue and green and beautiful, full of people who were flawed and struggling and trying their best. And now, for the first time, they were not alone. Marcus thought of his grandfather, long gone, who had taught him to cook with care. He thought of the rejection that had nearly broken him. And he thought of Lyra, small, brave, impossible Lyra, who had seen him not as a representative of a primitive species, but as a person worth knowing. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" Lyra asked. "For believing in me. For believing in us." Lyra smiled. "You are welcome, Papa Human." And together, under the light of 1,000,000,000 stars, they dreamed of the meals yet to come. "Papa Human makes the best food," she had told the council. And in telling them, she had changed the galaxy forever. Not with weapons, not with technology, but with bread, with warmth, with love. And that, in the end, was the greatest trade deal of all.